without giving them the quintessential right of a citizen, and that's the right to vote. And by 1870, I think it was February, the 15th Amendment was enacted as a part of the Constitution, which gave black men at that time, black women still were not allowed to vote, black men the right to vote. 7 men, black men, Negroes at that time they were called, went to the United States Congress. And they were there until about 1929, I believe it was, when they began to dwindle in terms of African American representation in Congress. And it was a long period of time before you had any more. Interestingly enough, it was the Republican Party that African Americans first embraced in terms of casting their vote. Frederick Douglass became a runner with the Liberty Party of that time, and he was actually ran as on a vice presidential ticket. I say that to say that I think for African Americans then, or Negroes as they were called aptly, the focus was not about a particular love for a particular party, but for the party that was supporting their freedom, their liberation, their opportunity to be a part of the American way of life. And that continued until about 1937, I believe it was, when Roosevelt brought the New Deal on, 35 when he brought the New Deal on. And that appealed to African American voters. And many of them supported him. And subsequently they supported Truman. And he won 47% of the African American vote in 1947, you know. And as it moved forward, African Americans have been a part of the Democratic platform from then to now. Over the years, many of them, certain movements in the 60s and what have you, the Voters' Rights Act, it was supposed to try to do what the 15th Amendment was not doing very well. Right?
Give black folk, bring black folks out in political participation.
Extend them the opportunity to actually be a viable part of America through the right to vote. Now, a lot of people say, even to me as a minister, why would you be interested in politics? Well, the truth of the matter is, Black's Law Dictionary defines citizenship as being a member of a political community. So if you live in the United States of America and you're a citizen, if you're going to be heard, if you're going to be respected, if you're going to be a part, you must avail your rights as a citizen, and voting is a quintessential right to express that. I don't know, Dr. Haney, that the education and awareness around that is provided very well, particularly for the whole. And I'm not speaking of everybody, but for the whole of African Americans. We're talking about the old and the young. I mentioned 5 generations now, 2015. We still find ourselves questionably left out of the political process, by and large. And largely because certain generations did not pass down the essence and the importance of using that, being aware. I think it's important to have voter registration, absolutely. And we saw that during the 60s with SNCC and groups like that. But it's equally important to have voter education and organization, because that's what they had as well. We've lost that. Now, when President Obama came along, of course, riding under the Democratic ticket, great things in the party, African Americans saw my mother, my mother-in-law, my dad, and others in a certain generations, they saw a grand opportunity to put an African American in the White House. And we seized that. That happened. But if we're intellectually honest, there are many people now who voted then who have been disappointed to realize that there's, economically in many ways for African Americans, educationally for African Americans, socially, and even politically, nothing has changed. But it wasn't on President Obama alone. If there was appropriate education and organization, specifically on the African American subgroup, I believe we could have sustained that bump greater. And today what we're seeing is this apathy that comes from being disappointed.
And so in a real sense, there has to be much more activity in terms of organizing and educating African Americans for political participation, excuse me, regardless of who might be running for an office, which is to say that not to simply go out and vote for anybody, but to be aware of participation, and to understand that if you don't participate, then you can't say too much about those individuals who have been elected.
You can, but you won't be taken very seriously. Now, when you speak, now we've seen other subgroups, such as the LGBT group and Hispanic group. They have brought themselves together and established a well-defined agenda. And they put that on the table for political candidates vying for their vote. It's clear where they stand. There's no ambiguity whatsoever about it. If the African-American subgroup, who's long been here, and there was a time where it was illegal for a Negro to vote. Black man, or colored man, or African-American, folk could go to jail and be killed for doing so, teaching them and so forth and so on. In fact, Frederick Douglass was quoted as saying that, I didn't know I was a slave until I learned I couldn't do what I wanted to. Which is amazing today. And there are a lot of young people